pretty woman entered the wrong car. It belonged to a rich single dad. The first thing Serena Vale noticed was the silence, not the gentle, comforting kind of silence that follows a long day, but the heavy, suffocating kind that presses against your ribs and makes your heartbeat echo in your ears. She had yanked open the back door of a sleek black SUV parked outside the downtown courthouse, slid inside without looking, and slammed the door behind her as if she were escaping a storm. Only when she looked up did she realize the storm had followed her. A little boy with wide grey eyes was staring at her from the opposite seat, clutching a small dinosaur toy in trembling hands. In the driver's seat, a sharply dressed man turned slowly, his expression hard and controlled, like someone used to commanding boardrooms and not chaos. Serena's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't her ride. If you believe that one wrong turn can become the right destiny, pause for a moment right now. Like this video, leave a comment telling us you believe in kindness and second chances. Share it with someone who needs hope today. And subscribe to the channel Deep Night Stories so you never miss a story that reminds you how fate works in daylight, not just in darkness. It was a bright, unforgiving afternoon in the city of Westbridge, where sunlight bounced off glass towers and the world seemed too exposed for secrets. Serena's entire body felt like one exposed nerve. She had just walked out of a courtroom where her life had quietly, clinically fallen apart. The judge's words still rang in her ears, dissolving her 5-year marriage into a few sheets of paper and a hollow signature. She had told herself she would be strong, that she would walk out with her head high, but the moment she stepped onto the courthouse steps, the weight of failure had collapsed over her. She had ordered a rideshare without checking the license plate. She hadn't noticed the identical black SUV parked beside the one she was supposed to enter. She had simply needed to get away, to hide, to breathe. Instead, she had entered the wrong car. The man in the driver's seat was not a stranger to control. His name was Adrian Kessler, and control was the only thing that had kept his world from unraveling. He was 39, CEO of Kessler Infrastructure Group, a company his late father had built from nothing. He wore tailored suits, even on Saturdays, and his watch alone cost more than most people's cars. But none of that mattered when his 6-year-old son, Milo, was frightened. Milo had not spoken a full sentence in months. The accident had taken his mother 1 year earlier on a bright afternoon, much like this one. A delivery truck ran a red light. The memory of twisted metal and shattered glass lived behind Adrian's eyes every time he blinked. Since then, Milo's words had retreated into silence, as if language itself had betrayed him. Adrian had poured money into the best therapists, the most renowned specialists. Nothing worked. The house felt like a museum of grief, polished and immaculate, but echoing with absence. So when a distraught woman burst into his car without warning, Adrian's first instinct was anger. His second was protection. He turned halfway in his seat, his voice calm but edged with steel, asking what she thought she was doing. Serena could barely form an apology. She stammered, cheeks burning, explaining that she had mistaken the vehicle for her ride. She reached for the door handle, mortified, ready to flee. But before she could open it, she noticed Milo's tiny hand tightening around his toy. His eyes weren't fearful anymore. They were curious. Something shifted. Serena had always been sensitive to children. Before her marriage had fractured under the strain of unfulfilled expectations, she had been a music teacher at a small community center. She specialized in working with shy children, coaxing melodies from tiny, uncertain fingers. She understood silence. She had spent years helping children move through it. Instead of bolting from the car, she paused. She softened her posture and gave Milo a gentle smile, one that asked for nothing in return. The sunlight streaming through the window illuminated the faint tear tracks on her face, but her eyes were warm. Adrian noticed the change. He noticed how Milo leaned forward slightly, how he didn't shrink away. It was the first time in weeks that his son hadn't retreated behind the invisible wall he carried everywhere. Serena apologized again, her voice steadier now, and stepped out of the SUV. But before the door closed, Milo did something extraordinary. He raised his small hand and gave a tentative wave. It wasn't speech, it wasn't a breakthrough, but it was something. Adrian watched her walk away toward the curb, scanning the street for her actual ride. An unfamiliar impulse tugged at him. He lowered the window and called out to her, asking if she was all right. She hesitated before answering honestly. No, she wasn't. She had just finalized her divorce. She had nowhere urgent to be, nowhere that felt like home. The city felt larger and lonelier than it ever had. Adrian surprised himself by offering to drive her to a nearby cafe while she waited for her rideshare. It was a small gesture, one that defied his usual boundaries. Perhaps it was gratitude for the way Milo had responded to her presence. Perhaps it was curiosity. The cafe was sunlit and modest, tucked between a bookstore and a florist. Serena sat across from Adrian and Milo, feeling awkward but strangely calm. She learned that Milo loved dinosaurs and used to hum lullabies before bed. She learned that Adrian was raising him alone. She did not know about the accident yet, but she sensed the weight of it in Adrian's careful movements, in the way he watched his son as if guarding something fragile. Serena spoke gently to Milo, not demanding conversation, but offering it like an open window. She tapped a simple rhythm on the table with her fingers, a playful beat. After a moment, Milo tapped back. Adrian's breath caught. It was subtle, almost invisible to anyone else, but it was a response. Over the next hour, Serena forgot about her shattered marriage. She forgot about the humiliating courtroom and the papers in her bag. She focused on the child in front of her, on the way sunlight caught in his hair. She felt useful again. When her rideshare finally arrived, Adrian asked for her number. He told himself it was for Milo's sake. He told himself it was practical. But as he watched her walk away a second time, something in his meticulously ordered life felt unexpectedly disrupted. Days passed. Serena returned to her small apartment, where half the closet hung empty and the silence felt different from Milo's. Hers was the silence of starting over. She began looking for new teaching positions, sending out resumes, fighting the quiet voice inside that whispered she had failed. Then Adrian called. He asked if she would consider giving Milo informal music sessions. Nothing official at first, just gentle exposure to rhythm and sound. He insisted she would be compensated well. Serena hesitated, unsure if she was ready to step into someone else's complicated world while her own was still in ruins. But she thought of Milo's tapping fingers. She thought of how alive she had felt in that cafe. She agreed. The Kessler home stood on a hill overlooking the river, all glass and stone and manicured lawns. Serena felt out of place walking through its grand entrance, but the moment Milo saw her, he ran forward and stopped inches away, as if unsure whether he was allowed to hug her. She knelt and opened her arms, and he stepped into them. Adrian watched from a distance, something unspoken tightening in his chest. The sessions began in the sunroom, where daylight flooded the space. Serena brought simple instruments, a small keyboard, a tambourine, wooden rhythm sticks. She never pressured Milo to speak. She created games with sound, turning music into play. She noticed how he reacted to certain notes, how minor chords made him frown, while bright melodies made his shoulders relax. Adrian often stood just outside the room, listening. The house, once heavy with grief, began to hold something else, soft humming, the uneven but hopeful rhythm of a child finding his voice again. But life does not change without resistance. Adrian's board members began to question his focus. The company was negotiating a massive redevelopment contract, and his competitors were ruthless. Rumors spread that he was distracted, emotionally unstable after his wife's death. He buried himself in work at night, exhaustion carving shadows under his eyes. Serena faced her own storm. Her ex-husband contested financial settlements, dragging legal matters longer than necessary. Bills mounted. Some days she wondered if she had made a mistake walking into that wrong car, if she was simply delaying another inevitable heartbreak. One afternoon, as Serena guided Milo through a simple melody on the keyboard, he froze. A siren wailed faintly in the distance, echoing from the street below. His body went rigid, eyes wide with terror. The toy dinosaur fell from his hands. Serena reacted instinctively. She moved closer, lowering her voice, tapping a slow, steady rhythm on the piano keys. She told him through tone, not words, that he was safe. She did not mention the accident she had only recently learned about. She did not rush him. And then it happened. Milo whispered a single word.
Safe.
It was barely audible, like wind through leaves, but it was unmistakable. Adrian, standing in the doorway, felt his knees weaken. For a year he had waited for this sound. For a year he had feared it would never come. He stepped into the room, eyes shining, but Serena raised a subtle hand, asking him silently not to overwhelm the moment. She let Milo say it again. Safe, this time stronger. From that day, the walls began to crumble. Weeks turned into months. Milo's vocabulary returned slowly, fragile but growing. He began attending school part-time again. Adrian found himself laughing more, working smarter rather than longer. Serena became woven into their daily routine, not just as a teacher, but as a presence that softened sharp edges. Yet fear lingered. Adrian feared loving. Adrian feared loving again, feared that letting Serena close would invite another devastating loss. Serena feared being temporary, feared that once Milo was healed, she would be unnecessary. Their unspoken doubts hovered between them, like afternoon shadows. One bright morning, as they attended a school recital, where Milo played 3 simple notes on a small keyboard in front of an audience, Serena felt tears streaming down her face. Adrian stood beside her, his hand brushing hers accidentally, then deliberately. Milo looked into the crowd and said clearly, "My name is Milo Kessler." The applause was thunderous. In that moment, Serena realized that entering the wrong car had led her exactly where she needed to be. Adrian realized that control was never the answer. Connection was. Near the end of this story, if your heart feels a little fuller, if you believe that even on the brightest days life can surprise us with second chances, please like this video. Or share it with someone who needs hope, and let your voice be heard in the comments. Your engagement helps stories like this reach more people who are silently struggling. And here is a special request before we close. Comment the word "Sefe" if you believe every child deserves to feel protected and heard. On a golden afternoon, 1 year after that mistaken car door opened, Serena stood once again outside the courthouse. But this time, she wasn't leaving something behind. She was there to finalize paperwork for a new non-profit program funded by Adrian's company, Music Therapy Initiatives for Children Coping with Trauma. Milo ran circles around them, laughing freely, sunlight in his hair. Serena looked at Adrian, remembering the silence that had once filled his car. He smiled back, no longer a man defined by loss, but by resilience. Sometimes destiny does not knock politely. Sometimes it opens the wrong door, sits in the wrong seat, and changes everything in the light of day. And all because one woman, heartbroken and distracted, stepped into the wrong car and found exactly the right family.